Hello, everybody. Before we jump into the presentation, there's going to be a few questions that appear on your screen. Please take a minute to answer these, and we will begin shortly. Okay, hello again. My name is Sue Z, the Marketing Director here at 2W Technologies, and will be your moderator today. Thank you for joining us for this webinar on how to maximize Office 365 Teams. If at any time during today's presentation you have questions, please send them through the question box on your screen. There'll be an interactive Q&A at the end, and we'll try to get to all the questions then. For those of you who might not be familiar with 2W Technologies, we're a full-service technology firm that specializes in end-to-end solutions for the manufacturing industry. We are a gold-level Microsoft partner, as well as an Epicor certified partner, to name just a few of our partners. For more information on our products and services, you can visit us at 2wtech.com. The presenters for today are going to be Randy Cohn, who is a Client Success Manager at 2W Technologies, as well as Mark Jameson, who is our CEO and President. I will now turn it over to Mark to get the presentation started. Mark?
Hey, thanks, Sue. As Sue said, I'm here with Randy Cohn, who's part of his responsibilities at 2W is to help our clients understand and adopt the functionality that sits in Microsoft and Office 365. And we decided we wanted to do something on Teams today. And the reason is we use Teams internally at 2W pretty robustly, I think. And the interesting thing about Teams is that, or at least at 2W, is the entire adoption of Teams happened completely organically. It started with the Epicor consultants, who tend to be kind of spread out and working out of other people's facilities. And they started to adopt Teams. And then the IT guys saw that they were adopting Teams and what they were doing, and then they jumped on the bandwagon. And then, as it so happens, I think I was probably late to the party, but we use Teams all the time in a lot of different ways, and we're going to show you why we really like it. And so, when we talk about 365, this is kind of all the apps that are within 365, and it's a lot of stuff, right? It's way bigger than just Word and Excel and PowerPoint and Outlook, but it has all this type of functionality in it, and it can get a little overwhelming. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Teams. And really what Teams is it's the hub of all the other applications. So it brings together the full breadth of 365 to get you a kind of a portal into all of those applications, right? And so it is truly the kind of the integration of all of it. It provides a standard and persistent chat. So unlike Skype or texting or something like that, when you share chats back and forth with people and or teams, it's there and it's there forever, essentially. And you can use this if you've got 3 people or you have 300 people. This is a really, really powerful tool. So like I mentioned before, Teams kind of integrates all of this functionality within 365. And so we have OneDrive, which is you would use that for your personal files and your shares. Skype for Business, which is chats and phone calls and video calls, and the calendar for meetings and conference calls. SharePoint, which is kind of the group file share area. And then you would have, and then of course, your contacts, which comes out of Outlook. And you can also integrate other things like things that drive news articles or Twitter searches, or there's all kinds of applications that you can also integrate directly into Teams. But one of my favorite reasons why I like Teams is it stops the cacophony of email exchanges. So what happens is you tend to get, emails can be very inefficient when there's more than one person you're trying to communicate with. So for example, I'm sending out, I blast out an email to a group of people about a particular subject, and then those group of people respond back, and then I respond back, and then multiple people respond back, and then inevitably I've got somebody who responds back to a non-current part of the thread, and then it just becomes this gigantic hairball. And the same goes with file shares. We want to work on a document together, and I send out the document, and then people work on it, they send it back. Now we have revision 2, and then somebody else works on it, and that's revision 2.a, dash their initials. And then it goes back and forth and back and forth, and basically then what always happens in those situations is I end up making changes on revision 2 when the rest of the group is on revision 9, and you never really know, well, where is the area of truth. And so being able to share these files with this small group or this team is incredibly effective. In fact, we're at the point now here where we don't really email files back and forth at all, do we?
No, not at all.
Yeah, it's so what we're going to do, so Randy, so when we want to get started with Teams, right, what do?
Well, first thing we do is they log into their 365 account, and they go to the top arrow there, which is the glamorous word waffle. That's really what it's called, folks. You click on there, and then you'll see your apps will come down, and the second arrow shows Teams. And that's the one we're going to be talking about today, and how it's going to help you be a little bit more efficient. Not everybody will use Teams exactly the same way, or any app the same way. Some will go deeper, some will go shallower, some will be where we are too.
So when you make a team, the first thing that happens is 365 creates an Azure Active Directory group, an email distribution list, a SharePoint site, a wiki, and a OneNote notebook for that particular team. Then as you invite somebody to that team, they have access to those areas, right? And then you can then subdivide those teams into other
subchannels.
Mm-hmm.
So you may have, we'll just use our Epicor consultants as an example. We have that as the base team, and then under that, it's all the little sub things that go on in their daily life of helping clients succeed with their Epicor.
Right. There's an SSRS channel. There's a troubleshooting channel. They have other channels like that. We have a team here that is specifically for the folks who are based out of the office here in Pewaukee, Wisconsin. And that's most of the people bitching about how cold it is, but it's still pretty effective. And so that's and you want to also download it to your phone.
So you can get obviously the local agent here on your device. You can do Teams there too. I use it on my phone, on my iPad, on my Mac. I mean, everybody gets 5 instances of their license, so
right.
They can download it wherever they want to go.
Right, and I use it. I have it on my phone. I have it on my iPad, which I use quite frequently, and then of course it's on my desktop. And I think everybody here pretty much has Teams open all the time.
I believe so, because that's pretty much how we get
stuff done.
Yeah.
So we're going to show it to you now. We're going to walk you through. Randy's going to show you the kind of the log and what's happening in your teams. We're going to show you how you can chat. You can also make a video call. We'll show you some examples. We'll show you how we were using it. In fact, we're going to show you how we actually, between Sue and Randy and I, actually designed this webinar and how we use Teams. And then we'll talk about how to set up a meeting, and we'll share with you some best practices on how to get started. So let me make Randy the presenter. Okay.
Show my screen.
Yep.
All right. Everybody sees King Vince, master of the Packers, and all things good. All right. So we're going to go into Teams here and how we literally how we do it each and every day. So as Mark was alluding to here, when we actually set up this webinar, Mark was a passenger in a car driving to Indiana, doing it from his iPad or phone. I'm not even sure which one.
I had my Surface tablet.
Okay, you had a Surface tablet going, and you were doing the outline. I was back in Pewaukee area, and Sue is in Pennsylvania.
Right.
And we were moving stuff back and forth. and doing it collaboratively. That's what you're going to find out. That's a huge word within Office 365 or Microsoft 365. Collaboration is the key, and it makes things much easier. And as Mark was saying, you don't have to worry about revisions because it's always live as you're working on it. So with that, the daily log, or activity as they call it, this is literally a running tab of what's going on today in all of the groups and or teams that I'm following within 2W Technologies.
And you choose which teams you want to follow.
Right, yep.
So you can, so you don't get overwhelmed with a cacophony of noise.
Exactly.
Right.
In fact, I learned more about Epicor from our consultants by following the channels than anything else, because they're there on the firing line every day. Then there's chat. If those of you who are on this call are used to Skype, think of Teams as Skype on steroids. There's a lot of similar functionalities. You can do one thing, you can do in both of them. But Skype is usually for that one-off conversation. Hey, I got a second to talk, blah, blah, blah. And it just kind of like disappears, and then it becomes a saved conversation in your Outlook. Because remember, all of these applications are interrelated to each other. Whereas Teams is that running conversation that you want to have all the time, and where you need to go back and not follow. And I know Mark hates email. You don't want to go back and try to follow that email train and see, hey, did they call me on that day? Did they send me the stuff information on that day? So this keeps it live and current all the time. So that there's a running thing. There we go. These are contacts. These are the recent conversations I've had. So you get to see what's going on. Here's the part of Teams that we use, or that I follow every day. We have our IT scripting team, our general technologies, rapid fire sales, dispatch, Epicor consultants, where I go to school every day, sales, Pewaukee, clients. We make a channel for every client so everybody can get in, and you as a client can be in that channel too if you wish.
Yep.
So you kind of know what's going on. And then the one that we created just for today is the Teams webinar. And so this was from 3 days ago. There was a link. We'll go into that. There's the general, and then this conversation. We're looking at it, and within that team itself, instead of, let's say, I was explaining to Mark before, instead of saying we've got 5 people on this team, and if we did it by email and we had to send a document to 5 people, it would have to be, let's say it's a 10 meg document. Now we're moving 10 megs to that server 5 times. There's really no need for it. Whereas if we just put it here, everybody can get to it and go from there. So in there, you'll see we have files that we put together just for this. I mean, this is the presentation that Mark was showing you earlier. And here's how it started, okay? Just to show you how they're all integrated. We started.
So we had a meeting.
We had a meeting
like everything else, and I took down some chicken scratch on OneNote.
Yes, this is English, believe it or not. So but it's Mark's English, so we always have to make him interpret it for us. And that's where we started. And how are we going to make this thing happen? So
I uploaded my OneNote document into the Teams area, which attached it as a document here.
And then from there, Sue, who I don't know how she puts up with us, was able to take it and make a presentation that you saw earlier, and which we'll get back to too. And this is the report of all the people who had signed up through as of yesterday for this actual thing.
Yep.
So that information was there too. So I don't have to chase anything. You don't have to chase anything. I can just go right back here and find all the information I need to make this successful.
And then when we were working on the presentation, I would do some stuff, and then Randy could add some stuff.
Right.
And because the file lived here in the Teams area, we didn't have to email it back and forth. And the really nice thing is it automatically saves it.
Right, exactly. And that's one thing. So when you're working in the collaboration, whether it's the big 4, well, I won't take Outlook out of it, but Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and you're working on your web version of that application, there is no save button there. So don't panic when you see it. It automatically saves in real time.
Right.
So it's always there. And the beauty of that is when you're working on your web version of whatever those applications are, it's in real time where people can work, you and I can work on it, and all three of us can work simultaneously.
Yeah.
So we can keep adding and subtracting. And the beauty is that we can't overtype each other.
Right.
Because we're locked out of what you're doing, you're locked out of us, but you get to see that we're actually working on it. So it just makes things so much easier because you don't have that dwell time waiting for somebody to update something.
Yeah.
And you get it, now you open up, now you put it back and whatnot. That is one of the best parts about Teams.
And then show them the wiki real quick.
Sure,
So.
and here, and everybody's going to get a link to this. Don't worry, because this is kind of like the end all be all.
It's the Bible of 365, for Teams. Yeah. So this is a pretty comprehensive document that we based our presentation on, and we're going to give everybody this. But we took that link and we stuck it in the Wilkie so that the three of us could have access to it.
And which makes it so much easier because let's say if you're working on a project there and you found a link to what could be the solution to everybody, instead of saying, hey, go to this site, you can just put that link in there.
And it's there forever.
It's there forever.
Yeah. So important stuff, important information. It's a great place to put it. Let's show how we make a meeting.
Yep. So we're going to go in. Here's a meeting, and so as you see, we practiced,
Yeah.
and so now we're doing it live. So at 2 o'clock, I want to have a meeting. So I'm going to schedule a meeting for, let's say it'll be the webinar wrap up. And I'm a lousy typer, so don't worry. And I'm going to set it for 2 p.m. Central. And it does, here's another thing, it does actually change the times per somebody's.
Because we're spread out all over time zones too,
so
right?
We're saying it's 2 Central. We don't have to put that in there. Sue will get this, it'll show at 3 Eastern. So put in there, you can type, whatever the details are. I'm going to invite. I'm going to put in Sue, and I'm going to put in Mark, and now I want to schedule that meeting. And you can do this from Outlook too, but here's the thing, you don't have to go to Outlook to schedule the meeting. It's going to take care of it right now.
And what's really nice about this is that now it does put it into your Outlook.
Right, it does.
Right, so it's all right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get down to the point where you actually want to jump on the meeting, you can actually join you can actually join if you're set up appropriately. You can have a call-in number,
mm-hmm.
or you can join the meeting you can join the meeting right here from Teams, and it'll
mm-hmm.
connect you. Verbally or to all
or
the
video if you wish.
So yeah, you can just meet up in the.
If you like people to see you or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
And we use this every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning with all of our IT techs.
Yep.
7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern, and that's where it goes.
Yeah.
And if we've got to share anything, we share it. It's verbally, it's video. There's a link.
When you do a screen share, we do it right here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna leave it at that, and it'll send out the.
In fact, I just got the alert.
Yep. So now at 2 o'clock, and it's the same thing on the other end. Like if you were to send it out of Outlook,
mm-hmm.
you accept, decline, whatever you want to do,
yep.
and then away you go.
And it will also show up in your generalized meeting or your calendar here. So if you book that in Outlook.
Let's see. Let me grab my Outlook here, and I'll go to calendars, and. Yeah, it showed up right there. It's right there.
Yep, there you go.
So, like I said, they're all integrated to each other, so you can't miss. And what's my favorite quote about Office 365?
Is you play with it because you can't break it.
Right, exactly. So get in there, dive deep, because you just cannot break it.
Okay.
All right. So, and then let's go back to the chat thing. We just talked about briefly about, if I say I'll send Alicia a message here, hello, because we told her.
We were going to send her a chat. Yeah. So, and then it'll sit there. As you can see, Alicia sent Randy some funky little video cartoon of Charlie Brown.
Exactly. Now, and also there, if I wanted to, I can call her from here. I can do an audio call, or I can share my screen with her, or I can.
Yep. Do a video call.
Do a video call.
Yep. Which you're calling her right now.
Yep. Oh my God! Better get off of that screen.
All right.
But it is truly the way to Office, and I'm going to fire this baby back over to Mark here. And I know everybody likes to use the word paradigm and whatnot, but it truly is a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
It is the way to Office, no pun intended, because it saves you a ton of legwork, a ton of running around,
Yep.
a ton of memory, really, because it's just right there.
So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, how long are these guys going to go for? And we're almost done. But you're also probably thinking, okay, great, how do I get started? Well, instead of coordinating through email, start a team, right? Use the invite feature and create a team and start chatting. Just start using it, and that's the best way to do it. So if you have a small group of people, say, hey, I'm going to do this, and see what happens. Or if you have a document you want to work on and you need to share, it's a great time to just kind of dive into it. And then there's some best practices here, right? So we talked about this. Get a small group of people and just chat with them.
Yeah. Just play with it. Just do it.
Download the desktop and the mobile apps, and the mobile apps are in fact, in some cases, the mobile apps are actually better to use than the browser app.
Yes. Yeah.
And then start to go bigger, right? Create larger teams and dedicated channels and to topics or whatever, right? Customize your channels. Use the Wilkie, right? That one document or that one thing or that one link that everybody uses when you have that team. Utilize that. Stick something up there. Add your apps in, so you can actually integrate apps. There's a whole host of apps you can integrate, so you could launch Word or Excel or Planner or any of the other three right there from your team. That's a pretty neat thing. All the Wilkie stuff, right? The need to know content. Here are my notes from our meeting last week. All of that kind of stuff. These are great places to put and to post in the OneNote or the Wiki feature. Use the resources, right? So you can track news. If you have a performance indicator, some KPIs, you can integrate that into the team. Metrics that you track, right? And then my favorite, which is, let's get out of email and let's get into Teams. And you can actually forward the email directly to your Teams, and then if there's an attachment associated with it, it'll actually put that attachment in with the files. So you can if you find yourself into an email hairball, you can just send that to the team and go, you know what, let's manage this in Teams and versus Outlook. And then you can also bring other stuff in there. You can do Twitter or whatever your news feed is, or Trello, or you can actually move connectors through Flow, which will enable you to move other information into these teams. And you can also invite guests into your team. So if you have a client or a vendor or another person who's not within your 365 framework, you can actually add those people.
Yes, you can.
And then use it. Be active. Use it. Get involved with it. You're not going to break it.
You're just not going to break it.
Yep. So that's what we have. If you have any questions, go ahead and type those into the thing, into the box there. And Sue, what do you got? I think that's all we've got today.
All right, guys, thank you. So just a reminder, you can still submit a question. It's not too late. Just use the question box on your screen. All right, guys, first question. How do we handle team members that like to work locally? Are there any controls to stop team members from just uploading a new version of an existing file and create a new manual version?
So I guess the short answer is probably not.
Probably not, yeah, because they still have their own availability from their local.
Right.
But if they're gonna put it into that team network, it'll be for that team, I guess is the best way to put it. it's going to be as current. If they overwrite the one that was there, it's going to be only as current as the one that they just did locally.
Right.
They really want to open that up from the web version, because that's where it's always
Right. So in that case, what you'd want to do is you would want to have that person post that document there and then edit it. You can edit the document in, so if it's an Excel file, for example, you can edit the document in Excel on their machine, right? And at that moment, it locks everybody up, but still you're keeping one version in one file.
It will sync itself back to that.
Yeah, and it'll sync itself back to it. So you can edit it in Excel on your machine and still keep that, that one instance of that one file.
Right. But what it does do, as Mark was saying, is it does stop the collaboration at that moment in time until that person releases it from their machine.
Yeah, and there's times you may want to use the desktop app just because it's fully functional.
Because it's 11 o'clock at night and you can't sleep and nobody else is touching it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to stop real quick and just let everybody know we do have a lot of questions. So if you need to bail at any point, we will follow up this with a couple links to some of the content that Mark and Randy had referred to during the webinar. So you can kind of be on the lookout for that in case you have to go before we get through all of these questions. Okay, guys, next question. Is there a limit to the amount of storage for each team or total for the user or company?
There is, and I don't want to put the number up because it always moves.
Yeah.
Microsoft has it.
Well, and you can add more.
Right, but there is a good amount. I mean, a good amount.
It's a very large number.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's in the terabytes. So it's not like somebody's going to put something up there and it's going to stop that team.
Yeah. So, and then again, if you did bump up against that, it's easy enough to reallocate, or you can add more.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to,
it's infinity, really. I mean,
yeah.
But I have yet to see anybody, even us internally, get anywhere close.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, next question. How are you able to share your screen through Teams? You had mentioned it, but I must have missed on how you did it.
Oh, okay.
Well, here, let me, let me
So
give you.
Actually, we'll just use yours if you want.
I don't have. No, let me.
Okay.
All right. So.
Yeah. All right. Let's say that I hope everybody can see this now.
Yeah, it's there.
Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. I am working with Alicia, and I want to
share your screen.
Share my screen. Oops, not there.
Well, I think you need to be on a. You actually.
Yeah,
need to be
I actually have to
be on a team.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have to be on a team together.
But if you're in the meeting, you can, or or involved in a team meeting. You're gonna.
Well, here's how it is. Hey, how you doing, folks? So I'm actually in a conversation with her here, and here it is right here. When you're in that conversation, it is.
Don't hit on mute.
Yeah, she'll stop.
Okay.
That screen that was in the middle that showed the that arrow, that's the one you click.
Yep.
And that'll show your screen, and then the other person has to accept that they're going to.
Yep. So if you're in a meeting with them, you have that little box with the arrow in it.
Right. Yep.
And that's how you show your screen.
Yep. And what we have found some of the clients that are using this right now, even through Skype, is when you have engineering and production.
Yep.
Where they're actually sharing the screen back and forth, just so they instead of just talking about it, they can see it, and it works out pretty well here.
Okay.
I'm going to send that back to you there.
Somehow I think we're going to be coming back one.
Yeah, but it's okay.
All right. Go ahead, Sue. What else you got?
Okay, we still have a long way to go, guys. But I think if you can answer two questions, maybe we can knock a few out. So a two-part question.
Right.
What pushback or obstacles would you find or expect when someone adopts it? And then there are a lot of questions about best practices. So if you want to kind of do obstacles and best practices.
So, what I've seen is it's just what it is it's something different.
It's new.
It's new. It's a different way to do stuff. And so I think that's and so you're kind of changing the way that people interact because most everybody's used to, the way most people collaborate is via email. And now you're moving away from that. And so what we found here is that once we introduced people to Teams collaboration, it's just far superior. As I mentioned right at the beginning of the webinar, our adoption internally was completely organic. I mean, it was not a effective immediately, you will use Teams to do this. It just took off. And I think everybody had been using it for a while before I even noticed. And and so I think once you start to use it in small groups, and then you start to evangelize it, I think the kind of the pushback, the organizational pushback, kind of disappears over time, and then people find more and new and better ways to do it.
I mean, as I was brutal to all these people online here, showing what I look like, I grew up in the Flintstones world, but it's actually the Jetsons world now.
Yeah,
and that's
yeah. So so as far as pushback, and then as far as best practices go, what we're going to do is we are going to send out a couple of links to everybody, and we are going, and that will walk you through some of the best practices. But as you show people Teams, what some of the stuff, I mean, what turns on the light bulbs for them?
Collaboration is always the biggest thing, because now it's kind of like they can do it all here, and like we have alluded to throughout the whole thing, there's no email train to chase down. It's like, hey, where did you put that file? Is that on our O drive or whatever? It's just right there.
Yep.
So I mean, literally from your phone, from wherever you are. In fact, just for fun, I chimed into our team from my phone while we were doing this whole thing here, just because it is that constant. There are no drawbacks to it. Like I said earlier, some people are going to go deeper than we are. Some will go shallower. It literally is as much as you want.
And that link right there, successwithteams.com, is a terrific place for best practices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no one can go wrong by doing it.
Okay, next question. How do you incorporate outside users, or should you? For example, I work for a service company and I want to include our internal team and users with our clients.
So that's a great question. And so, because I can argue both points on if you want to bring outside folks into your conversation. And I think you certainly want to do it with, you don't want to do it to somebody who's if they're outside the group, you want them to be very close to your group. But you literally just add them. If as long as they have an email, or it's Outlook or a Gmail account, right? Yeah. You can just add them via email, and then they can access it that way. They'll also be able to get notifications and stuff. And if they're part of 365, it's nearly seamless.
Right. Yeah.
And then you just have to. Then I think the best practice on that would be to note maybe in the name of the team that this is not a completely internal conversation, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you need to be careful with that, but it's very easy. You just go to add a team and then put in their email, and they're part of that team.
Right, and each level of the team, actually in each level of everything you do in Office 365, you can set permissions.
Yeah.
On what they can and can't do or see or whatever.
Right.
So just because you add somebody to a team doesn't necessarily mean they get to see all of the stuff, because if you don't want them to see something,
yep,
you just don't give them permission to see that particular thing.
I think this next question you maybe just touched on a little bit, but does everybody that has a 365 account have access to Teams?
If you have 365 Premium or above, so essentially that Premium is the $12.50 a month,
right? Yeah.
License that includes all, includes email, and then includes all the Outlook and that stuff. So if you log on through your browser, you go to the Waffle, if you can see it, everybody has Teams. Now because you have Teams doesn't mean you can see all the teams, because you can actually set up your team as a private team where they have to be invited, or you can open it up to everybody within your 365 instance. So we have a 2W Technologies general team area, and everybody who's got a 2W Tech email is on that team.
Right, exactly.
But for example, our webinar team that we put together with Randy, Sue, and I, that was closed, and nobody else could access that information or even see that team.
Okay. A follow-up question, I think, to the last question, which was about incorporating outside users. So can you add vendors, customers, consultants to a team that is not within our domain? Is there an easy way to manage team members? For example, matching it to our AD user list or user group?
Perfect.
Yep. Perfect. I mean, that's that is the answer.
Yeah, as long as you have, what you would need to have is Active Directory sync, which is a piece of 365 that synchronizes your Active Directory to your 365 account. And if you don't have it, I would encourage you get it anyway, because it will make everybody's life so much more easy. But yeah, you can leverage your Active Directory that way. And then what it does is, if you have Active Directory sync, you can leverage the permissions that are inherent in your Active Directory on that for your users.
And typically when we do an install for people on Office 365, we don't put the global share with everybody. We leave that up to the local administrator to do that. And so let's say you're trying to invite somebody from outside your organization and it keeps telling you you can't. Well, then you need to talk to your administrator to say, hey, I really need this person in here. I need permission to do that.
Yeah, the Teams itself will open. If you have Active Directory sync, when you start a team, it will create a group policy in Active Directory for those people.
Because
all right, next question.
we don't want to accidentally share something.
Go ahead. So,
okay. Do you need to use Skype, or are other voice solutions supported for conference or video calling?
What you do is you would use in Teams. It actually uses Teams, so it pulls information from Skype, but it actually uses Teams. And then if you want to have phone calls, you enable the PSTN functionality of 365. So that all comes into, so it leverages the voice to voice and the conference call ability of 365, but instead of going through Skype, you're using Teams as the launch pad to enact that functionality. Does that make sense?
Well, I know what it is. I know what you meant.
Okay. But if you want to make phone calls, telephony phone calls, external telephony phone calls, you do the PSTN functionality.
Is there a way to hide or archive old information to avoid clutter, or do I have to delete to keep Teams clean?
No one's ever asked me that one.
That's a good question. I don't know. We don't know.
We don't know.
I would imagine there is. We do know that because like, for example, for file share, that file share, it creates a file share within SharePoint, right? So you can access those files via SharePoint. So I would imagine the way to do that would be is to create a separate directory in SharePoint and then just call it archive, and then just move all that stuff over there so that they would be there, but they wouldn't necessarily be available through Teams. Yeah. I think that would probably be the best way to do it, but I'll tell you what, we'll do a little bit of research and loop back.
Okay, how is Teams different from SharePoint?
Great question. So SharePoint is designed for group sharing of files, right? So when you open up a team, it actually opens up the SharePoint site for that team. So there is a SharePoint site in 2W's domain for the Teams webinar team. And so, and the people who can access that part of that SharePoint is Sue, Randy, and I. So then, so it's secure that way. So if you think about it, it's not, Teams is just a window and an access portal to SharePoint. So SharePoint is a thing, it's out there, it's leveraging the functionality of SharePoint. You're just able to access it through your Teams view.
And it also goes back to their individual OneDrive.
And then you can also put it back in your individual OneDrive folder too. So you can access your OneDrive files that way as well.
Again, they're all interrelated.
Yeah, it's all intertwined.
Okay, next question. Can I send emails to a team or channel, and how do I get notified if I were to receive a new email?
Okay, so the answer is yes. So every team that you you start has its own, creates in the Exchange part of 365 creates a group email essentially, and that group email then is for everybody there. So you can email to the team. That email then is tracked and housed within the chat files or the files.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they're in the files, all the emails that go in. If there's an attachment to that, it will actually split that attachment out and put that in the files area. And then there is an email that goes out to everybody that this was an email that got sent, right? So you can kind of use it for that archive. You can get notifications.
You can also set up your notifications to let you know.
Yep.
I do it on my phone. If I get a notification, boom, then I know something happened.
Yep.
On my screen, let's say I'm working on my local computer, boom, it pops up to say you've got a new message in Teams, just like you would in Outlook.
Yep.
And
then there's actually then within the Teams app there's a flag that shows how many unread messages you have within that channel. So you open up Teams and it's not unlike email, right? You know how many unread email messages you have. You know how many unread messages or chats or whatever you have in that particular team channel.
Okay, last question, unless I inadvertently missed one here. Does 2W Tech offer training on Teams, and what is the cost?
That's you.
That's me. Yes, we do. If you are a current or future Office 365 client here at 2W, we do. There's a fantastic name that Microsoft calls it, Customer Immersion Experience. I am a certified Customer Immersion Experience Facilitator, and I can do it via the web and anywhere between 2 to 4 hours. I literally start at the top at SharePoint. Think of SharePoint as the top, and we just work all the way all the way back down and show everybody how to use it, the whole Office suite.
Right, and there's no charge for that for current clients. And if you're not a current client, give us a call and we'll or reach out on one of those email addresses here. We'll work something out.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think that is all the questions finally. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. If we can get you any follow-up information or if you have more questions, you can either reply to one of your reminder emails or reach out directly to Randy and Mark. Their contact information is up on the screen, and we'll do what we can to help you out. Again, we will be following up with some of the information from these links that we have listed here. Thanks again, everybody, and have a great day.